So on the Creator Plus side, I think what Jonathan and I were, talking through, last year when we were kind of coming together on this, with the pandemic and theaters being shut, we're looking at this and it's like, well, when things subside and stuff starts to open back up, is the market going to revert back to where it was before? And lots of analysts have opined kind of on this. We also took the view of it's not going to revert back to where it was before. There's still an intent, I think, to consume. It's just going to be done in a different manner. So if there's a redistribution of some of that money, which in North America is north of $3 billion, I think that we've kind of seen estimated of redistribution. It's like, hey, there's an addressable market for us to, a multi-billion-dollar one for us to go and play into. And then actually working with, this new generation of creative talent that are super savvy and actually how they build large engaged audiences. And so we're also looking at this as saying, okay, the platforms that they're building this community on are somewhat then restrictive on storytelling. If you do this on TikTok, it's like you got a time constraint. YouTube, you also have there's kind of an economic constraint of how much you would reasonably want to go and spend to then make that back in AdSense money. And then on the sponsored content side of things, the brands now, and actually with the companies that are working with them, I think it's less of you just do what you want to do. And I think with bigger spends, it's like we actually want to be, we have a brief. We're looking for a certain type of content. And so work with us kind of on this thing. So if you got this passion project, it could be sitting there, in the drawer or on the shelf for some time of how do I actually get this thing properly financed and do it the way that I want to do that actual project. And so we were kind of seeing, just having worked with creators for a long time, that certain people were very creatively driven, have these passion projects, want to bring these things to life. So then it's like, hey, is there a different way or a different vehicle of which to actually go off and do this? And then being cognizant of the market that we're kind of playing in and how things have kind of been reshaped. And so I think, pre-pandemic, whenever I would actually bring this topic up with folks, it was like, you should just go make movies and put them into theaters and then just get the people involved just to market that as an influencer and then just push people into cinema. And I was thinking no. But if you did digital distribution, you can actually follow that transaction all the way through. You can optimize that. And that becomes actually your customer, right?
And it's immediate. It's immediate as well. Click here, do the transaction before you change your mind. No lining up, no taking out the cars, no parking.
Yeah, so I think when I was at Turner and doing games, we had lots of we had free users, and then we had free games with microtransactions. So we had that subset that were paying money, and we were trying to pay attention to who are these users and spending quite a lot of money actually on these games or engaging with the IP. And so we looked at kind of customer segmentation and trying to pay attention to that. And we were doing that as the IP owner. And so I think on the same front, it's you have these creators with large audiences, but then there's a similar opportunity for segmentation. And then actually how to know how to recognize and then engage, from that standpoint. So I just saw a lot of advantages if you actually had a digital platform for distribution, because you can actually play around with this. Whereas if we're sending you kind of offline, we lose track of that, and it's harder to kind of know for sure how you're kind of engaging on that end. So that was a whole bit. I think it was just a bit of kind of market timing maybe, and that it's something that I've seen this desire from creators for a number of years. But as I said, I think with some of the folks in the market pre-pandemic. We're not putting a lot of weight actually on digital distribution. And then during the pandemic, it was oh yeah, well, no one's actually going to the cinema. And so, things are changing. Look at this younger kind of audience and how tied are they into actually wanting to keep watching films in the movie theater. And so when people kind of say oh, that's the way to do it, they're generally of an older demographic. And I don't hear that from my kids who are 7 to 12 years old. So I was okay, I look at them, play them out for the next 10 years. Where is that market kind of going? We'll go place a bet that the digital distribution is going to be a larger and larger kind of share of that. And
we've seen it in the video games industry. with the arcade centers, which were the way to play video games, the coin-op machines, and in Japan especially. And it kept going down and down and down as console revenues went up, because when you have Street Fighter 2 in the comfort of your home, and you can eat, smoke, have fun with friends, drink, which you can't do in a theater, and you can play it more often, you can replay it more often, and there's a parallel there. And the arcades became this, it became more and more over the top, that you had to have, the DDR, the Dance Dance Revolution mat, or the big driving cars. You had to have the stuff that is too expensive to have at home, which I guess is the way cinema is going to go. It's going to be a big spectacle full of equipment that you couldn't buy in your home. But for watching just a movie, that's it. Once you grow into the habit of digital, you don't lose it. And we see the same in mobile game consumption now. Everybody thought, oh, but when people go back out, will that mobile game peak come down? We're looking at the data the last 30 days. It's not. It's still growing. It's still growing. Now that you played your favorite game, invested in it, are you going to stop playing it because you get out again? Nah. You're going to play it on the bus, on the plane, but you're still playing it.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I think on top of just like the playing and that engagement, I mean, the other thing I'll just kind of note that Jonathan and I thought a lot about actually with the construction of the company was like having a firm footing in product and engineering. So like that's actually his background is in product management, and so we felt very important that we actually have that skill set kind of in house from the get go, or from the leadership position. So that we're like having more control over this product and platform that we actually want to go off and build. And so then thinking about like, how do we bring together this content consumption experience, but also community and also commerce, which today I think in this area is fragmented across, you go different places for different things. And so it was like, well, could we attempt to actually kind of bring some of this stuff together? What does that actually look like? And actually, if we have those capabilities, what does that then do to kind of inspiring the creative storytelling of the creative partners that we actually have? What things could we then entertain, and how stories are actually kind of crafted and delivered, that again, maybe on another platform, no one is even entertaining that or not, nor asking them. It was like, I need a finished product. It needs to be in this kind of file format. Just give it to me and I will distribute. How people choose to engage from a community aspect, yeah, that's actually going to happen on Twitter or somewhere else. If there is any, audience or fan appreciation actually of, the consumer products and merchandise kind of related to this, yeah, that's also going to happen somewhere else, and downstream. And so we're kind of like, what if we actually, all that stuff is actually fair game, and we were very mindful of that kind of up front, and then we bring people into the organization who are thinking, or just aware and thinking that holistically. And we were kind of looking around, I was like, we actually don't know too many things we could point to that are like, that's exactly kind of what we're trying to do. So again, there's no playbook. I don't know, but for me, it's like, that's kind of how I've been rolling for most of my career.
Classic band, go fearless.
Is it was just, you're going to be making this stuff up as we go along, and it's been fun. So I think for me now, it's like, I'm connected to a lot of companies. I think within the investment side, it's about 20 companies now, and get a solid amount of deal flow, every day.
And I think you've greenlit your first project, didn't you? Didn't you announce something last week or a couple of weeks ago?
We actually just wrapped our first film. We just wrapped production on the first film, Jane, which is a YA psychological thriller. Madeleine Petsch is starring and also producing. Melissa Leo and Chloe Bailey are two other of the actresses in the film. First time female director. So that's slated to be released late Q1 2022. Yeah, and then we
the
have
main reveal of the platform then. At the same
correct.
time.
Yeah, and then there's more. So the goal is to get 6 films out next year. So
You
probably
gotta come back to tell us how it went and how it's going.
yeah, yeah, can do that. And so yeah, but it's good. There's a lot of things in development right now on that front to then kind of meet the goals and objectives we have for content releases in 2022. Starting to kind of look at some things that are just timing wise are going to take more time to develop. So more realistically, probably release in 2023. Have a global investor base actually for Creator Plus. So Collide actually, when I got that off the ground, it was a very small kind of like pre-seed investment. The business is tracking really well. It's profitable. And so haven't really had the urgency to actually go and go raise money just to keep it kind of running. I think if we're going to put more capital into that business, it's really for acceleration. Then for Creator Plus, did a financing round that we closed back in March, and then that actually had a larger collection of investors from around the world, from India, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Africa, UK, and then across the US. And I think with that, I think what's of note is, our interest actually into look at international markets, which has been the story.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, are you going to focus on American creators or do what you did in the past, just go worldwide and find talent wherever it lies?
Yeah, so we're already working with some creators in Australia. I think right now we're starting with content that is
In English?
it's going to produce and be released in English, but that's not to say over time that we actually wouldn't look at content in Portuguese, that resonates really well in Brazil or in Spanish for Spanish Latin America, and Arabic for the Middle East, Hindi for India, Japanese, etc. So again, I'd seen that firsthand, like on YouTube. I was talking about that before, again, in the Southeast Asia markets where you kind of hit local culture, local language, and some of that IP, as mentioned before, in the kids space, like just from Malaysia, doing 1 billion views in 2 countries, right? And so I just know from that experience that like you don't need to always go global to actually make it commercially viable. You can really you can go deep into some of these markets. So very, very mindful of that, but I think we're also kind of looking at where stories and culture can actually cross geography.
As a native French, I always laugh in influencer meetings when I name Cyprien and Norman, and nobody ever heard of them. And they have like 8 million subscribers, or maybe 10 by now, and 3 to 4, 5 million views per video in France. And in France, they are like PewDiePie or Mr. Beast. And if you don't speak French, never heard of them.